All right, so we're here at deer camp and we are getting ready to set up this 10-point crossbow with a Xero X1i Crossbow scope. So we're going to take the 10-point scope off, we're going to replace it with the X1i, and we're going to do a simple setup. This shouldn't take more than 15 minutes. All it is manually aligning at 20 yards. We're going to enter in a bow speed, and then we're going to validate that speed at 40 yards plus. So to get started here, we'll take off the 10-point scope, and we will throw on our Xero X1i Crossbow scope. It's just 2 Allen key screws that'll mount this thing right up here. Go ahead and tighten these down. Before we go ahead and lock this thing in place and crank it all the way down, we're going to go ahead and just check and make sure that our eye relief is okay. Make sure that that scope is properly positioned. And that looks great where it's at right now. So we'll go ahead and tighten this thing down. So now that we got the X1i Crossbow scope mounted on the crossbow here, the next step is actually installing the trigger cable. So the great thing about this is you can actually feed this anywhere that you want. We're going to try and get it pretty close to our trigger here, so it's just an easy range button. All that you do here is simply plug in your trigger cable, twist it in place, and then we'll decide where we want this. So in this case, I'm going to feed it back behind the stock here, and we're going to have it sit right here above the trigger. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing taped down in place, and then we'll be good and ready to shoot. All right, so we're over here on the range. We're all set up to shoot. We just installed the X1i Crossbow scope, and the trigger cable is in place how we want it. So now we're going to go ahead and walk through the setup process. As I mentioned, this is a 3-step, very easy process. The first step is shooting at 20 yards and manually aligning. The second step is entering in our bow speed, and the third step is validating at 40 yards plus. But before we get into that, we want to make sure that we're on target. So before we start with a 20-yard alignment or anything else, we're just going to take a shot here at about 5 yards just to make sure we're on target and we don't need to make adjustments before getting into the setup process. So we're a little bit low here at 5 yards, and it's important to understand that our arrow is actually still rising. So we want to hit a little bit low here at this 5-yard step so that at 20 we'll be really, really close. We're probably 6 inches low right now. I like it to sit about 3 or 4 inches low at 5 yards. So that at 20 we'll be real close to the bullseye. So I'm going to make a quick adjustment here at 5 yards before we back up to 20, and then we'll fling a few arrows and see where we're at. All right, so we made a quick adjustment at 5 yards just to make sure that we're going to be on paper here at 20. We've backed our target up, and we're going to go ahead and take a 20-yard shot. So following along in our instructions, we're going to go ahead and tell it that we were good at 5 yards. And then our next step is going to actually be to range our target at 20 yards so we can confirm that 20-yard range. So we've ranged at 20 yards, and we're going to go ahead and take a shot here. We're pretty darn close. I always like to confirm with a couple of arrows before we make any rash adjustments. So we're going to go ahead and pull this one. We'll shoot one more, make sure that we're still just a hair right. And if we are, then we'll make a quick adjustment and we'll be done here at 20 yards. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take one more shot here at 20. Make sure that we're still hitting right there in the same spot. Almost through the same hole. We're going to go ahead and make maybe an inch, inch and a half of adjustment to the left, and we will be good to go at 20 yards. All right, so to make this adjustment, all we're going to do is loosen our lock knob here, nice and loose, and then we're hitting to the right, so we need to go left. It's about 10 clicks per inch here at 20 yards. I'm going to go about 12. And then we're going to lock our lock knob down. Now this is really important with this lock knob. You're going to want to tighten it until you hear that visible click. All right, so we've made an adjustment at 20 yards to the left. Now we are just going to take one more shot to make sure that we're shooting well here, and we will move on to the next step. And that looks pretty darn good there. All right, so the last couple of shots we've been shooting over the Xero C1 Pro Chronograph here, which is great because this is actually giving us an average shot speed. So the next step in the X1i Crossbow scope setup is we're going to actually enter that bow speed. So we're going to enter 406 feet per second. Awesome. And then our very last step for calibration here is we are going to back up to at least 40 yards, and we're just going to confirm that speed and make sure that our calibration is correct. That looks pretty darn good there. So as you can see, we're pretty darn close here at 40 yards. You know, there might be 3/4 of an inch of adjustment that we could make, but that's just as easily me shaking. I mean, all we have in this scope is a 3.5 times magnification. So I'm pretty darn happy with that. I think that's plenty for what we're doing this week. So we'll pull our arrow out here, and I'd say that we're good to go and ready to hunt this afternoon.